Hey everyone, welcome to Evolving with Uncle D. I'm your host, Uncle Devin Walker. Thank you for joining me. And before we go any further, make sure that you click that button and subscribe to our YouTube page and also hit the bell so that you can always get alerts because we got some powerful stuff for you. Thank you for joining us because today we're going to talk a little bit about action. There's a lot going on right now around the world. And I felt that a lot of people have called me to ask me my opinion on what action steps that they can take to be able to address all the different things that are going on. So this is the beginning process. There's a lot of different things that we could talk about, but I want to share with you action steps that I have taken. Now, I think I have a history that qualifies me to do this because somehow early in life, I have focused my entire life. I pretty much have dictated my entire adult life in struggling and trying to figure out and actually taking action to try to fix the problems, especially and specifically for the Black community. And so, but of course, we're talking about oppressed people everywhere, so it will connect to everyone everywhere. But when I came out of school, out of college, I really dedicated this, the majority of my 20s really was in this area. I almost didn't focus anything on personal, social life or anything like that. And many people who knew me when I was younger will attest to that. They'll say that, I would go hang out every now and again, but most of my time was really focusing on our situation. So today, I want to talk about a program that I implemented when I was 23 years old. When I came out of college, I think it was 22, 23, I can't remember what age. I was so fired up, and I grew up like many people in the Black community in the Black church. The Black church is my family, specifically the African Methodist Episcopal Zion Church. I'm based in Washington, D.C., but of course, it's a national and international denomination. But when I came back from college, and this was around 1990s, 91, when the United States had entered into the war with the Iraqi war, and they were lying about that. We saw what was going on, and not only just in South Africa, but all parts of Africa, in Haiti, in Latin America, and I couldn't believe that as much as I grew up in the church, there was a lot of things that wasn't taught to me when I was in the church, and I came back a little upset because I it wasn't until I went away that I really learned about the real history of not only Christianity but of religion, but also even though the church was called the African Methodist Episcopal Zion Church, we really didn't have any direct connection with what was going on in Africa. And through my history, I realized that many times we kind of left Africa, not even just Africa as a continent, but we as African people allowed this country to divide us from people who are going through the same oppression from the same people and the same system. And so I was fired up and I went back to there was I think this was a district conference in Washington, D.C. I think it was at St. Lucille AME Zion Church. And we were there all weekend. If you ever been to a church conference, you can be there all day, all night. But not one time did we talk about what was going on in the community. We didn't talk about the war that was going on in Iraq at the time, or we didn't talk about what was going on in Haiti or the homelessness in our community, or for that matter, even the violence that we saw in our own community. We didn't talk about any of that. And so after the 2 or 3 day conference, the bishop asked, the late great J. Clinton Hogarth, Bishop J. Clinton Hogarth, that's my man there. So all hearts open, all minds clear. And I said, no, mine wasn't. And I stood up and said that I can't believe that we were here and not one time have we addressed any of these concerns. And I really thought that I was going to get thrown out of the church because you just don't do that. People have been there all day. They're ready to go. But to my surprise, I got an applause, and the bishop asked me to come to the front of the church. And this is my first time really interacting with the bishop. And he thanked me for having the courage to stand up and say something. And I was very impressed by that. But then he said something that really changed my life after that. Not even my life, but at least my action. He said, "What are you going to do? What are you going to do to change this?" That blew me away because he wasn't just throwing it out at me, but he was just saying, don't just simply talk about the problem, be the solution and be a part of the action. And that helped me to create what I do now, which is called my PSAs, Uncle D's PSAs, problem, solution, and action. I'm gonna do another video on that exclusively a little bit later on. So make sure you join. You go to our YouTube page, and you'll get some more information on that. He really encouraged me to think about what are solutions and what actions am I willing to participate in, and also what I can bring forward. So that led me to doing a newsletter. And at that time, the newsletter was called the Direct Action Program. Well, this was called an Appeal to the Black Churches of America. And this was a direct action plan outlining practical ways the Black church can help save our communities from social and economic destitution. And this was part of a newsletter that was called the Kemet Report. The word Kemet, it has this is another name for the word Egypt, and it was focusing on the fact that, or even for Mother Africa for that matter, and it was focusing on the fact that all history, knowledge, religion, math, all of that came from a source far beyond and before Greece and Rome and any of the European civilizations, but constantly is ignored and kind of whitewashed out of history. So I did this newsletter for a while back in 1992, and what I did when we went from here, I actually wrote it in this. I actually republished it in this book in 2008. So I wrote the appeal in 1992, and I republished it in this book. This book is called The Way of the Gentiles. That came out in 2008. This one is my book called An Appeal to the African Church of America, in America. Beware of false prophets. But I wasn't talking about people. I was talking about money. And I started talking about and understanding the class dynamic that was taking place, the race and class dynamic that was taking place. So these two books actually contained all the newsletters that I did, which includes this particular appeal. So today, I'm going to share with you this particular appeal because many people have asked me, what can I do to make a change? What can I do to take action? And this was one of my first presentations that I made that outlines practical steps that we can take. What I'm going to do is I'm going to read to you certain aspects of this appeal, but you can get a copy of this appeal free of charge. I'm going to share with you on how you can download my direct action program. I call it my DAP program. That's it. This is it. Direct action plan program. And I wrote it actually in resolution form, but what I want to do is I'm going to read to you the intro to this particular document because the intro was very important as well as it relates to the church. Now, I have to admit, before I even get into it, I'm no longer a member of the church, but it's still my family. I can't, they helped to raise me. I'm still great friends with many that are there, beautiful people. But this is appeal that I submitted to the church, and I'll just read it to you. It's as printed in May 1992 in my Kemet report. It says, in 1829, David Walker, a free Negro who had moved from North Carolina to Boston, issued one of the most important appeals in the anti-slavery era. David Walker's appeal to the colored citizens of the world. His appeal stressed the need for the slaves to revolt against their slave masters because, quote, they want us for their slaves and think nothing of murdering us in order to subject us to that wretched condition. Therefore, if there is an attempt made by us, kill or be killed, end quote. That was the Reverend David Walker in 1829. And so I want to go and share with you something else, as I continued in my appeal. This is what I said. In honor of one of our greatest freedom fighters, and I was talking about Reverend David Walker, I present this appeal in resolution form to the Black churches of America to rise up against the evil thrust of white supremacy and domination, and to develop this direct action plan or one similar to it in order that we may control the destiny of our own communities. We must rise up against the continued monopoly control of all major resources in the world, against the social and economic deterioration and decay of the Black community, and most importantly, against the ever-increasing military seizure of urban communities as witnessed in Los Angeles, California, and cities around the world. Now, keep in mind that this was in 1992 that I issued this. Okay, so I want us to be very clear that that this was what I was looking to do. Let me continue. As a member of the AME Zion Church, I will present this appeal this year to the church body during the annual conference in Washington, D.C., and the general conference in Atlanta, Georgia, which I did. I would like to encourage the reader, whether a member of the church or not, to pass this appeal on to other congregations. Although this appeal is issued specifically to Black churches, it can be developed by other organizations and individuals as well. We are at war. Consequently, we must make preparations to fight the fierce battle that started long before we arrived here, or we were the first ones here, so long before they arrived here, I should have said, or may last long after we're gone. But we must continue to fight for righteousness and to bring about God's just society. So that's what I wrote in 1992. So then I began to talk about the resolutions and what we said. And if you ever see a resolution, the resolution is, whereas we do this and whereas we do this, therefore let it be resolved that we will do this. So I did that, and it's pretty lengthy. It was about maybe in the book itself is 10 pages. In the book itself is 10 pages, but I'm only going to share with you a couple of ideas, but you can get the full context of this. I'm gonna share with you later on how you can get a free copy of this direct action program. I want to give you some DAP, okay? Direct action program. All right. So let me go back to where I was. And one of the resolutions is, whereas Africans and those of African descent have always been looked upon by the oppressor as tools for making profit and wealth for the minority on the earth. Okay. Whereas the United States designed a sabotage program entitled the Counterintelligence Program, or COINTELPRO, which was organized to, quote, expose, disrupt, misdirect, discredit, or otherwise neutralize, end quote, Black nationalist organizations, churches, and individuals such as Martin Luther King Jr., Malcolm X, the Honorable Elijah Muhammad, Assata Shakur, Kwame Ture, and whereas the European community represents the 12 wealthiest European nations in the world, has made plans to establish the United States of Europe, which will establish a single European currency, a central bank, and a united defense military policy. And whereas the top 1% of American families gained 60% of the growth in after-tax income between 1977 and 1989, and the number of billionaires doubled during the same time period. And whereas the United States uses over 60% of the world's natural resources, or the majority from Africa, but is the home of less than 7% of the world's people, and Western monopolies dominate about 80% of the volume of African trade. And whereas in 1991, the average salary for chief executive officers, or CEOs, of America's public companies reached $1 million or more, despite massive cutbacks and layoffs. I talked a lot about Christianity, and all major religions started in Africa, and that Jesus was a Black Messiah that came to the world that they're trying to whitewash. I mean, I talked about all these different things. Then when I got to that point, I went on and I said, then let it be resolved. Let it be resolved that this congregation of people, representing a part of the body of the Black church, adopts the following action plan, or one similar to it, and will work toward the liberation of the Black community from its state of social, political, and economic decadence. One of the categories, and I'm going to bring this up in a minute, was community building. One area was financial. One area was academic. One area was personal development. One area was health. One area was national and foreign affairs. And each one has very specific things that I was suggesting that we should do in order to bring about what we were looking for. So let me go back to and pull some of those up, and you can take a look at some of those. And again, this was all still, keep in mind, in 1992 is when I issued this. And this is where I said that we must declare a state of emergency in the Black community, which requires us to focus 100% of our time and resources correcting these atrocities. We must organize against the current military seizure of urban cities throughout the U.S., which has the objective of imprisoning and controlling the activities and movements of the Black community. Keep in mind, 1992. We must donate at least $5 per person per month to a community-based organization, organization was very important. I will continue. That we must organize watchdog committees and advisory groups that will speak to the issues of importance to the masses of our people. And we must strive for the goal whereby every member of the Black church, denomination by denomination, mentors at least one youth 18 years or younger in our community. And I say that we must organize church money and place it into a single financial institution, i.e., Black owned and run schools, Black owned businesses, scholarships, whatever the case may be. That we must financially and morally support all Black independent schools that seek to free the minds of Black children, which will create the process or pathway leading to full liberation for oppressed people worldwide. And another category we talked about was that I talked about in 1992 was national and foreign affairs. That we must organize an aggressive campaign that will monitor all media outlets for programs that contribute to negative behavior within our community and establish mass mailings or of disapproval to these stations and their corporate sponsors. I got another video coming up real soon where I'm going to talk about how they use many of our artists. Stay tuned, and I'll be sharing some more information about that in the coming days. We must bring in local, national, and international, I said, speakers who can give us a better understanding of the world around us. I will say this: speakers are great, organizers are better. And this is where I've grown, where instead of just bringing somebody that can speak, we need someone that can talk about their PSAs. We know what the problems are, but what is a solution and what actions are you bringing to the table to help us fix that? But nonetheless, that's what I stated back then. I said we must redirect the focus of our community so that our people fully comprehend the meaning and the seriousness of a state of emergency. Just imagine if all of us in our community, all of our churches, all of our fraternities, sororities, the Masons, the community organizations, our civil rights organizations, if all of us collectively say we are in a state of emergency, and then and then take action to address that. I continued on and said that we must increase our direct contact with people of Africa, Latin America, and other places where oppressed people reside, thus bettering their situation and linking people of color all over the world. We are not the minority on this earth, and other people around the world are suffering just like we are suffering. And we have to recognize that we do have allies around the world. And so that was the purpose for that particular resolution. We must identify and utilize the Black media establishments that are already at our disposal and can be used toward the elevation of our people. So those are just a few of the resolutions that I put forward that at the time as part of my direct action program. It has more specific things in terms of how many books we should be reading per week, just other little practical things and steps that people can take. I want to encourage today any organization who may not already have something like this, get a copy of my direct action program. Take what you think is the best out of it, throw the rest away, add to it, but come up with your own direct action program. I gave it that name, but you could take the name. I don't care. It's about our action. It's about our activity and what we do. Now, if you would like a copy of this direct action program, you can simply go to take your phone out and use this QR code. And this QR code will take you directly to my website which is at churchappeal.com. I'll put it down at the bottom, churchappeal.com, and go to the contact page, and you can you just have to send us a contact information, send us your email, and we will send that information to you. Okay, we have to do this ourselves. This was just my attempt in 1992, and many of these things I still practice today. Okay, but as we see what's going on around the world, we don't have anybody but ourselves, and we have to focus on getting ourselves out of these conditions. Our children are still just too many of them being caught up in the system, and now can be legal slaves based upon the 13th Amendment while they're incarcerated. And we need to change this a lot. So you can go there. But again, this is the YouTube page, Evolving with Uncle D, that, where we are. And I want you to subscribe to this page because my goal is hopefully weekly. I'm going to share with you different action plans, things that I've done, things that I'm doing, so that you can get an example, and you can chew it up. Give me some feedback. Say, Devin, I think this is wrong, or I think you should do this, or this is what we're doing. I want to also hear from you. What are you doing, so that we can work together, and we can just take it from there. So go to this page, get the QR code, or use your phone, get the QR code, and get a copy of the direct action plan. So thank you for taking some time. There's a lot going on. But the one thing that we don't have time for is people to only talk about the problem and not be a part of the solution and the action. I'm providing to you certain ideas. Hopefully, you'll take what I've shared with you and come up with some other strategies for yourself. Definitely, if you can do something individually, that's great. But when you can do it in an organized manner, that's even better. So find out what we got to give all of us got to give ourselves some DAP, okay? And that DAP is direct action plan. What's your personal and your organizational direct action plan? And you don't have to even make it public, because as I mentioned earlier, we know that what this country has done to many of our organized movements. So all of us, just take your plan and work it. You ain't got to tell nobody, but you know the work that you got to do, because they can't stop us, and that's what they really are fearful of. So anyway, thank you so much for taking the time. Again, hit that subscribe button and hit the bell. Follow us on Uncle D, Evolving with Uncle D, and let's make change. We can and we will do so, and I really appreciate you. So until next time, I will catch up with you real soon. Peace.